LGE may be held in March. Man fired for multi-million-dollar nepotism. And what does the global energy war mean for Guyana? I'm Rico Bulford, and this is Uncut News. To see what's happening, send us a tip on WhatsApp at 592-659-6151. GCOM believes that March 6, 2023 is the earliest possible date it could host the overdue local government elections. While GCOM administrates elections, the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development actually calls the date. In this case, GCOM Chairman Claudette Singh would have to write Minister Nigel Darmlall informing him that they are ready. As Guyana observes World Teachers' Day today, the Guyana Teachers Union has issued a call to the government to recognize long-standing grievances of the nation's teachers. The GTU said that teachers are not motivated to stay for very long. However, the dedicated ones who remain eventually find themselves forced out of the system if they don't be silent and comply. And they say it is because of this, scores of teachers have been opting for early retirement and have been moving out of the education system, some moving out of Guyana altogether. They again repeated the call for better facilities, equipment, and salaries for our nation's educators. 55-year-old shop owner Mark Carmichael was charged with the offense of possession of a forged currency note on Tuesday. He pleaded not guilty and was released on $20,000 bail, and the case was adjourned to October 14th. Today, Ramps Logistics was slapped with 10 charges following a GRA investigation. According to the court, Ramps Logistics lied on several customs declaration forms, which stems from the fact that in the eyes of the state, they are still considered a foreign-owned company, but they operated as a local company due to its selling of half of its shares to a Trinidadian of Guyanese parentage. It might not be robbery season, but the streets are still mean. That's why you need to get security for your home and business through Sheriff Security Service. Sheriff Security offers well-trained guards, armed and unarmed patrol, marine patrol, canine services. These people even got drones. Why? Because your security is their highest priority. You've seen the rest. Now hire the best. Hire Sheriff Security Service today. Now it's time to tell you about Best Buy's Car of the Week. Currently on sale is this 2016 Toyota Crown Athlete. It comes with Bluetooth, mark rims, new tires, TV, CD, stereo, fog lamps, back camera, and much, much more. Buy cash for $9.95 million, or pay as low as $1.99 million down with around $170,000 monthly for 5 years, and it is yours. Call or WhatsApp 662-0844 for more info, or visit the showroom at 171 Peter Roshi, Queenstown, alert to Lamoshi, and tell them the Riga sent you for this sweet deal. A 24-year-old gold miner, Ravin Williams of Warapoco Village, Northwest District, has been missing since Friday. According to his family, he was last seen at the Parika Stelling late in the afternoon. He was returning home from working in the interior and had stopped in Parika where he was seen drinking with 4 other miners. According to them, he left to buy a SIM card and was never heard from since. The GPF has issued a wanted bulletin for Kieron Taylor of Lot 83 Adelaide Street, Charlestown, Georgetown, in connection with the murder of 19-year-old Raul Samuel Granham. Granham was the GTI student who was attacked and brutally beaten by a group of men near Starbuck Square, Georgetown, last week Friday. He succumbed to his injuries 3 days later. According to family members, they believe the attack may have been a case of mistaken identity. Now for news from the diaspora. According to the New York Post, last Friday was to be 67-year-old US-based Guyanese Ramnaresh Mahabir's last day on the job at the Transit Authority's construction division, after over 3 decades at the MTA. However, he was fired and escorted off of the job by armed guards 2 days before that day, after an internal investigation found him guilty of nepotism, a classic Guyanese scheme. Mahabir was cited by the MTA Inspector General for arranging for his brother and nephew to get $18 million worth of MTA construction jobs, despite them not having the required qualifications for the role. At no point did he reveal the conflicts of interest to his superiors. However, the scheme started to unravel in April of this year when a worker broke his leg while on the job site where the nephew was in charge of safety. Wow, nepotism, fraud, and poor worker safety? My gosh, could you be more stereotypical? Now for today's oil update. Reuters News reports that Exxon signaled third-quarter operating profits will cool from the second quarter's all-time high as oil prices, refining and chemical margins pull back from the previous period. The largest U.S. oil producer explained in their most recent financial filings that operating profits could drop to about $11 billion in the third quarter, down from the $17.9 billion profits in the second quarter. Exxon and rivals this year have posted sky-high earnings on rising energy prices and demand aided by cost-cutting, and of course the war in Ukraine. Exxon's official results are due on October 28th. Attention truck owners, if you're not shopping at Powered Automotive, you're wasting your money. Powered Automotive has all the major parts for DAF, Freighter, Mark, International, and more. No need to knock your belly here. They have all the parts you need at the prices you can afford. Visit them at Lot 491 EE Eccles, or call or WhatsApp them on 697-0171. Save your truck parts at Powered Automotive, the #1 heavy-duty truck parts store in Guyana. You can multiply your cash by selling digital top-up. This is a legit way you can earn some extra money at your business or to supplement your current hustle. Become a top-up vendor quick and easy by linking with Cellular Plus. Call them on telephone number 685-3109 for more info. Now for our stupid news of the day. You know what I think is stupid? There's a global energy war at the time when no one in the world can really afford to fight it. As you know, the US Federal Reserve has been hiking interest rates to lower inflation, which got even worse after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which triggered a spike in oil prices to over $100 a barrel. But with oil prices finally cooling from their summer peaks today, OPEC Plus said they want to keep the gravy train running, so they agreed to reduce daily oil production by 2 million barrels to push prices back up. OPEC's de facto leader, Saudi Arabia, said the steep cut was necessary to respond to rising interest rates in the West and a weaker global economy. These Saudis also denied claims it was colluding with OPEC Plus member state Russia to drive prices higher to fund Russia's current ongoing war in Ukraine. Biden's last visit to Saudi Arabia was terrible, with him unable to get Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to agree to any new oil deals, nor a condemnation of Russia's said invasion. Meanwhile, the White House has called OPEC's decision short-sighted, as it is disrupting Biden's goal of depriving Russia of oil revenues by keeping gas prices low and having U.S. producers taking a larger share of the global oil market. And of course, keeping Americans happy with lower fuel prices. Ha! The Americans also accused Russia of weaponizing energy, with many facing soaring energy prices throughout Europe, while the Russians accused the U.S. of weaponizing the dollar and financial systems by passing sanctions and locking them out of the SWIFT transfer system. While some experts fear a return to $100 barrels of oil, Saudi Energy Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman said production cuts of 2 million barrels per day are based on existing baseline figures, which means the cuts would be less deep, because OPEC Plus fell about 3.6 million barrels per day short of its output target in August. The prince said the real cuts would be about 1 to 1.1 million barrels per day, mainly from Gulf states, as sanctions on Russia, Venezuela, and production problems in Nigeria being the main source of the current shortfall. So, what does this mean for us? Well, it means that things are about to get rough on a global economic scale. But fortunately for us in Guyana, we have two effective weapons in this war that we can utilize. As a small oil-producing state that is not officially aligned with anyone, energy and food independence needs to be our primary national goals. Fuel and food gives us the energy to power modern life. Both give us the energy to make physical and national growth possible. That's why I believe that any government plans that Guyana's government has that makes us more dependent on outside forces for our daily life is pretty stupid. Now for our Uncut News Viewers Poll Question of the Day. Every day we pose a question about current events in Guyana, the region, the diaspora, and how you feel it plays to us. Last night I asked, how do you feel about the government looking for investors for a local oil refinery? Lash says, cheap energy is a plus, employment is a plus. Excellent revenues when oil price is high as well. On the negative, when oil prices go low, best believe that it's the taxpayers that will have to pay those oil workers when the refinery can't break even. Worst case scenario, state-owned oil refinery becomes another Gaisuka. Oh gosh. Best case scenario, lowered electricity costs across the nation and lower unemployment. Indeed. Dimitri V says definitely more pros than cons. Having a local refinery takes the middleman out of getting our own oil refined. There's also the potential for even cheaper gas prices, energy prices, and motor oil prices. This is all contingent on how the refinery is run, though. Indeed. Meanwhile, Colin Pratt says yes, it's a good idea, but they should have one in regions 2, 6, and 10. Well, I believe one refinery might be more than enough for us. We don't really need that many, but it would be great to have a distribution system that reaches all those regions, of course. Navindra Lal says, I think we'll benefit a lot. We'll get gasoline, diesel, kerosene, fertilizer cheap, so the farmers will benefit with cheap fuel and fertilizer. That's a good point. And finally, Bantu King says, who's the investor, Jagdeo and Sue? Ha-ha! Of course they are! Now for tonight's question. Should Guyana be more proactive in joining some multinational oil cartel like OPEC, or should we just utilize our independent status to our benefit? I want to know, what do you think is the benefit of remaining independent? So think about that question. Tell us in the comments below. If your response is good enough, we just might feature it in our next episode. Anyway, that's all the time we have for tonight, and check us out tomorrow for another. Until then, I'm Rico Bulford saying good night, folks.